Okay, so I am here with Kirk Caouette, the writer, director, the executive producer. I guess it's a guy that just wants a lot of titles. Man, so yeah, you got a new film coming, American Badger. Yo,
Yo, yeah,
I think we
yeah.
need to talk about now. I will say, because it's, it could start off with like, why American Badger? But the Badger thing is explained at the beginning of the film. But
Mm.
what made you want to write like this sort of kind of assassin love craziness?
Um, what made me want to write it? Well, I'm kind of into art house indie films, and I'm also, a fight choreographer and in all these Hollywood type projects.
Hmm.
And I have this really nerdy infatuation with Wong Kar-wai's work. I don't know if you know Wong Kar-wai. He's a really famous filmmaker out of Hong Kong, art house filmmaker in the '90s, and he has that film called In the Mood for Love, which the European Film Critics Society has it rated as the best film ever made.
Oh, damn.
And a lot of people don't know about his movies, and his earlier experimental works are some of the most like strange and yet impressionistic films that I've ever seen. And he has a lot of films. This one movie called Fallen Angels. I saw it. I saw the opening scene when I was like 22, and it just burned into my brain. I was like, this is just different than anything I've ever felt when I watched the scene.
But
And
so what, because that interests me, right? So it's
mm,
like two things here. How did you stumble upon him? And then what was it about like that scene and just the work that really kind of just grabbed you in this way?
I stumbled into it in one of those old um, places that still sell, DVDs. Just
Ah,
like this is at least 25 years ago. I
yeah, a
saw it.
vintage shop.
Yeah, yeah, 5 years ago. And of course back then that was like cutting edge because we didn't we had Blockbuster and we had a few of these like really boutique places and
Mm.
yeah, it's like it was kind of an alternative uh, part of this city and in the city I lived. And I walked in, it had all these 5-star reviews, and I'm like, the hell is this? No idea. I'm just gonna put it in. And what it is like this combination of really slow moving burning art house with these exploding action scenes, with a soundtrack that I can never emulate with the budget we have. But the soundtrack is so like Wong Kar-wai's soundtracks. He takes probably years to develop them and find the right music, and it's really intoxicating. And when you watch the first few minutes of Fallen Angel, you get this impressionistic sensation that you can't really get out of your head, or at least I couldn't. And um, his plots, like his creativity is so bizarre. Like he'll actually shoot a movie for 10 years. He'll start like In the Mood for Love started without a script, without knowing what the movie was about. He just had this one song that he knew he was going to use in the film. It was a tango, and uh, he had a location, he had characters, and he didn't really know what the movie was going to be about. And he just goes out, and him and his DP Danny Boyle, they just start shooting things, and slowly the characters improvise and they begin to take on these characters that manifest as they're shooting. And when it's working, they all feel, and they all go in that direction. And by the end of it, he'll probably shoot like a 50-to-1 ratio or 100-to-1 ratio, where we only usually shoot a 5-to-1. And he'll come out with this masterpiece at the end that you cannot explain into existence. And people who've tried to emulate him in the past in Hong Kong, you can't. Nobody's ever done it because nobody's ever been allowed to shoot a movie for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, like the only thing that comes to mind when you say that is like Boyhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
Linklater
yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
in a completely different way, right? So yeah, that's kind
But yeah, another masterpiece, Boyhood, right? That's like, how can you create that? It's just it's hard to imagine it. Yeah, as a filmmaker, it's just hard to imagine it. So that was kind of the inspiration. His plots are very. Some people hate his movies. A lot of people like hate a lot of his films because the plots are broken up, and he'll introduce new characters based just solely on the imagery that has been captured. That's the thing about filmmaking that really nobody understands. How can a great script make a terrible movie? Because this happens over and over and over. You can have a great script, the best actors, the greatest cinematography, all the money in the world, and make a terrible film. How does that happen? It's not the director's fault. It's not the actor's fault. How does it happen? Well, there's this really, and I think that's why I'm fascinated with film, is because there's something that happens. We read the script in our minds, we imagine it, we try to recreate it, but we put up the camera, the lens doesn't see what your imagination saw. It has its own thing going on.
Mm.
And so what comes through the lens is what's real. Everything else is bullshit.
Yeah. Do you also think that sometimes there's a lost in translation element, right? Because, you know, there's some films you hear about and everyone can really get involved. You know, they'll talk with the writer, and everyone is playing a part in its creation. And then there's other films where the director has the sole vision, and it's their thing. No one else can, you know, interject anything into it. And I think sometimes it feels like there were two visions trying to manifest, but they just can't. But I do think you're right. Sometimes it's a case of the technology doesn't fit the mind imprint, so you can't make
Yeah,
it work.
sometimes, you know, the project is just fatally flawed from the beginning because you've got producers with the different, you know, different needs than what the director wants. But it doesn't, that's not really the reason, because you can have a fully archer driven film, like completely controlled by a really intelligent, highly creative human being with absolute control over it, and it doesn't necessarily mean the film is going to be good or not.
Mm.
The film, the what the lens captures is not, like, as a filmmaker myself, I can tell you what the lens captures is never what I really see in my mind. And then when you put it up in an assembly, you want to kill yourself because you throw the script in the garbage and you go, half of that shit didn't even work. The best scenes in my film are now going to be on the cutting room floor, and I got to figure out how to stitch this thing together to create some kind of emotional response to my audience, right? And I don't fall under this delusion that a great filmmaker makes great films because of a great script. It's really what a filmmaker does as the information's coming through on the dailies. You got to go into the screenplay. You got to start rewriting things if it's not working. Like, that scene didn't work. Cut that. So how can I stitch that together? You're rewriting at night as you come home, and you know, back to Wong Kar-wai's style, he kind of just jumped over that. He had, you know, he had the money to do it and had the resources and the time and the DP that was phenomenal, and he just didn't. He didn't believe in that way of filmmaking, that a great screenplay made a great film, and it doesn't. He made In the Mood for Love without a script. He had a sense of what the movie was about, but then when he started, it didn't work, and he pivoted into something else, and then he crafted this big chunk of clay in the editing room. He crafted it for a very long time, probably assembly after assembly, cut after cut, until he created a masterpiece. And I just find that extremely fascinating. Maybe because I work in TV, I work in Hollywood, big budget films, and it, you know, they try to control so much of it. And you know, and yeah, when you have 100 million, 150, $200 million, you can control more of it. And with animation, like with Pixar, or even with visual effects, you can create, things that are more in what was in your head because you're making it. But as a purist filmmaker, it's different, man. It's different. You've got to experience it if you want to understand. Like, a short film is one thing, but a feature film is another. When you put up the camera and you're halfway through shooting and you look at scenes and you're like, I'm so screwed. This isn't working. I've got to rewrite this scene and figure out how I can re-edit the movie while I'm shooting it. And then you get in the editing room, and that's when the true story is actually created. It's really not the premise is created on the page, but the true movie is created in the editing room.
See, I've heard people say that, but I've never heard anyone break it down like this. That, you know what I mean? The actual imagery that you're capturing doesn't always translate in the way that you were hoping to. But it's like, is it just when you're viewing the dailies that you realize this? Is it like
right to the end?
Oh man, that's
right to the day you deliver it. You're like, this is nothing that that was on the page and I planned it. It's nothing. And but the magic of it all is just as many scenes that don't work that you think should. There are other scenes that are just amazing that you never planned. And that's the magic of it all. You can have a tiny little scene and it's like, oh, I might use that scene, I might not. It's not that integral. And then you get in the editing room and suddenly it's very similar to musicians, right? You'll hear this often from, like, great legendary rock bands. They're like, yeah, we went into the recording room, we had all these hits, and then we had this one throwaway song that nobody really cared about. And then we released the album, this one song blew up and made us all famous. It was a one-hit wonder, and next we got a career out of just by accident. You'll hear that a lot. The one song that's the best song doesn't always respond to your will. And, the audience perceives it in a different way. And it's the same in filmmaking. It's just in filmmaking, there's 100 million moving parts at all times. And you're trying, it's like pushing a rock off a cliff, trying to chase it to the bottom and beat it to the bottom. That's what filmmaking is. Yeah,
that is really interesting, because I was recently speaking with a young lady, Michaela Whitman, and Arthur De La Rocha, right? They've got a new film coming called Clairvoyant, which is, if you get the opportunity, check it out. It's a lot of fun. But they were talking about how they were filming it, and sometimes stuff just worked out, right? Mm-hmm. There's a moment where you get this I think you call it, what is it, camera flare? I think
that's the flare.
Yeah. And they weren't necessarily looking to create that, but it just happened. But it really worked perfectly for the scene. And it's just like, because every time, like, I think there's this thing that the audience, you're watching something and you're just assuming, oh, they meant to do that. Or it's like, I wonder how they were able to capture this just like that. And to find out sometimes that, that was just a happy coincidence, it's a little baffling, you know what I mean?
It's baffling, and it's frustrating, and my very first feature film, it was in theaters in 2013, and there's this one scene, I'll never forget it. I had all this dialogue written, and it was this big breakup scene between this guy and his wife right at the very end of the film. It's this big breakup scene, and we've got this outdoor location out on this patio overlooking the ocean, and we're inside doing the dialogue, and this, we're shooting out of sequence, and we're like, oh no, it's going to start raining. We're independent filmmakers, we're totally screwed, right? We can't put sound mics out there. It's just, this is a nightmare. Like, I'm going to lose this location. I'm not going to have this scene. I don't know where I'm going to shoot it. What alongside the street, like, I'm screwed. And we're like, okay, well, let's just get out there and shoot it. And as we got out there, a windstorm comes. And we just like, we tried to mic it, and we're like, screw it, just fight it out, do the lines, and we're just going to shoot it. And in the film, I just turned down the volume and brought up music. It's one of the most powerful moments in the movie because her hair's like blowing straight, like looks like we got fans on him. She's like yelling at this guy, and he's like, just like storming in circles, and the storm created that moment. And when you watch it, you're so engrossed in the film, no one will ever know that that was completely by accident, because this dialogue was like very intricate. It was very important, but the film and that scene are way more powerful because we were screwed, and we just went with what was in front of us, and it turned out to be way better than what I had on the page or even what I had in my mind.
Now, because I am curious, right? Because this might sound like it's a tangent, but there is a method to the madness, right? Because you've been a big stuntman on like these huge films, right? But
Yeah.
you got into the directing and the writing and all of this kind of thing. So what training did you have for the direction?
Well, as far as the technical side of direction, I don't think a lot of people understand that when they watch a big film, if it's an action movie and we have a second unit, we direct that as like a stunt team. A second unit director is usually the stunt coordinator, or the stunt coordinator, and then we have a full unit, and we actually previs those scenes. We direct the scenes. We deliver the scenes to the studio cut, and the director, who is in collaboration with us, or if he's allowed to collaborate with us, the studio might not let him or her in certain situations, because these big studios can be really difficult to work with. And so the technical side, like the editing side, shooting fight scenes is more technical than any other thing. I mean, you have so many choices, so many, like you have to take into consider every time anything changes, any tiny little thing, you've got to figure out, where's this camera going to be? What is this punch? How does this sell? It's really, really technical filmmaking. It's the most technical part of filmmaking is shooting fight scenes. When I go to it, like I was on a TV show last month, and I was a stunt coordinator, and the director had to shoot just this little tiny fight scene, and they just went blank. They're just like, and this is a very, very good showrunner. She was a showrunner and the director in the episode. Great DP, great first AD, and they just went blank. They just have no idea how to do it. And it's like, for me, it's like, give me the camera. And I edit it all together in my head. So as a stunt team, we don't get any credit for that, or people don't understand that that's what we do, but we'll shoot a huge portion of films. So from that standpoint, I was very, very comfortable shooting a talking head drama. That was easy.
Yeah.
I know how it's going to cut. I know what I'm doing. And I started writing screenplays when I was about 20 years old, 19 years old. And I had my first screenplay option by Lionsgate when I was 20. So it was in 1995, I think it was. So I was like 24 years old. Nice. And so I've been writing a very long time. And I'd studied screenwriting for a very long time. And I'd made a few little short things. And so by the time I got there, I was pretty confident and competent. But I wasn't confident, and that the reason I made my first film, it's like a singer-songwriter movie. And I wrote and played all these songs, and then I played them live on camera, which was really, really terrifying because we weren't overdubbing, in the studio, so it was really scary. And that's why I made that film, to really, really challenge myself in that regard. I'd never sang in front of an audience in my life, and I made a movie singing in front of an entire, I don't know how many million people saw the film or something, and it's the scariest thing I've ever done. And that's why I did it. So yeah, but by having, a screenplay, by understanding casting, and by understanding the technical aspects of it, I felt fairly confident going into my first film, my second film. Yeah.
Now, the reason I asked you that is I was curious, because it's like I know there's with a lot of things, there's these classes, right? And they teach you all these fundamentals. Yeah, I've seen these comedy classes, how to write jokes, right? And you go to these things and they tell you like anyone can do this, and you just need to, and you structure it, and you should have this in it and this in it. And it's always, you just feel like, but no, not everyone can do this, right? It takes, there's a nuance to it all, right? And you're having to learn the how to work in those situations where it all goes wrong. So what I'm curious about is like when you were shooting that scene in 2013 and it's raining and windy, and but you still did it, right? Because I'd imagine there's a lot of people that were taught, okay, so if this happens, you don't try and shoot in these conditions because it just will never work, right? And there's a people that might have gone, no filming today, people.
Oh, everybody would have done that.
Yeah, but the fact that you didn't, right, and you were able to capture this incredible moment, right? That's the thing I think it's hard to learn. So it's interesting that that was your, you know what I mean? You didn't blink, you just went and did it. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks. I blinked a lot.
You don't tell the people that, Kurt.
You didn't know
you laughed in the face of fear. You went and did it.
You were terrified. You didn't know it was going to work at all. I'm like, I'm so screwed. I don't have like the climax scene of the relationship in the film. I lose the location. We're so screwed. Let's just see. And then in the editing room, I'm like, oh my God, this is maybe the best. Like I turned the music up, brought the sound. I'm like, this is maybe the best scene in the film. You know, you know what it is. It's similar to like the first time you invest in the stock market. This is a good analogy for it. You can go to school, learn economics. You can learn all these different things, and you can even set up a fake trading account and trade fake money. And you never really learn much, but you put that first $100 in there and it matters.
Yes.
Your learning curve goes up exponentially. And you can go to film school and you can take all the classes and do all that, but you take some of your own money and you go out and make a short film and you watch how quickly you improve compared to someone who just went through film school. If you have someone who's gone 2 years in film school, you're like, oh yeah, my dad's paying for classes. Yeah, I got a degree in film school. And you take someone who's made 2 short films. And if I had to place my bets on someone who was going to make a third, make a good feature film, I'm going to go with the guy the guy girl who made the short every time. Because film school only really teaches you the theory of it, doesn't put you up, throw you in the deep end up to your neck and you got to swim and figure it out. And as you figure it out, you learn from your mistakes. You learn when you're drowning, you learn how to get out of those things. And over time that crystallizes and creates a base for you to stand on.
Nice, man. See, yeah, it's just fascinating. I'm always so intrigued by the process because it's always a different one, right? Whoever you speak with, they've just got this different way of creating this magic that we get to watch on the screen. And it's fascinating. It really is. Like, do you ever have people come to learn under you, like apprenticeship, so to kind of get the gist of this whole thing? Or
yeah, I think naturally you have I think every film you'll have a lot of people who in just various levels, right? They're just curious. They'll come in and work as a production assistant, or you'll have people who come in and work as a third assistant, a director, or you'll have a camera assistant who comes in and just like hands the cameraman the camera because they're all learning, and that's all the way right up to the director's chair for sure. There's always always people who are going to be learning from the craft, and that's really traditionally how it's been taught. You learn it by being there. You absorb a lot by being on a film set. Spend 10 years on a film set, you're gonna know movie making inside and out. Even to the point where if you spend 10 years on a film set, you'll probably absorb enough, even just from hearing the director or actors talk to each other about how to coax a performance out of an actor. You'll learn a lot. So yeah, I'll have different, uh, different categories of people who I'm mentoring while I'm directing, for sure, for sure. And I'm not really trying to mentor them. It just happens. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. That's interesting. All right, so heard it here, people. I'm gonna be on the set of the next Caouette film, and I'm gonna be learning.
Come down, man. Come down. You're welcome. Everyone's welcome.
All right, so your new film, American Badger, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny, like we seem to see these cycles, right? Where you'll get a certain type of film come, then other people try and make that type of film, and it falls away. And then a few years later, it goes again, right? And I think in recent years we've had the Bourne films, which were very good and just different, right? Different to the Bond type of like assassin action film. And then of late we've had the John Wick films, but then you throw in things like Leon and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So in this field where there have been some great films, La Femme Nikita was
amazing.
Oh my days, incredible. And it's funny because my sight is terrible, so I can't watch subtitled films. But I watched La Femme Nikita, and luckily there's not a lot of dialogue, and they do speak very slowly. So I struggled through it, and it was, love that film, man.
Amazing. A great film, you can turn the audio off. You really can. If you watch a great film, you can turn the audio off and you have no doubt what's going on. Because a good film is told through pictures and the talking is secondary.
Yeah. I mean, yes, like the dialogue is a supporting cast member, as it were. But
I like that.
Yeah, everything else is the main act, and you can, it's just like the body language and like those certain little things that happen, that tone change, that
visual. It's a visual medium, right? It's not reading or listening. Those are different. It's a visual medium, and yeah, that's so cool that you could watch a French film and be that affected by it. That just means it's a great movie. It really does.
So why, like, what was the thing about, I'm gonna try and tell my story. I wanna, like, what was that kind of feeling when there's been so much ground trod?
Trodden ground.
Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah, all right, we'll go with that. Right, there's been so many of these films, right? So when putting this together, what was like the thought behind it?
The thought behind it is it's a lot more complex than what it might seem because of the way the film's being marketed. Again, being really influenced by this concept that this Hong Kong filmmaker in the 90s created, where you don't really know what you're going to get. And so you shoot things, and as you shoot things, you realize what you're going to get. So we shot in a very high ratio of shots per what we use, and this was intentional. And I just liked this this very quiet film noir feeling and explosive pieces of action. And I find it more interesting. I do. Not film noir is not everybody's cup of tea, right? Somebody, excuse me, most young men who want to go in and see an action film, they want John Wick, right? They want something that's just like, yeah, let's just throw popcorn in the air for 2.5 hours because the fight scenes are amazing, and that's cool. That's cool. That's how I make my living. But I'm also just really interested in the art of it, and the much bigger picture of the artistic element of this film. And again, it might not interest anybody, but film nerds. I don't know, but what we actually did is we actually created two films. And so American Badger is the first of two movies. And was this fully intentional from the beginning? Not entirely. I did have it in my mind because it was a project that I wanted to do a long time ago. But the second film, the follow-up film to American Badger, is called American Velvet. And the female character in American Badger is actually the lead character in American Badger. And not many people, unless you study screenplay or story, would understand that she actually goes through a hero's journey, and Badger character does not. Badger character appears to be the lead because he's doing all the fight scenes and you're following him. But when you actually study it from a filmmaker's perspective, she's the character that's in a really, really crappy situation. She's forced into a situation that she's uncomfortable with. She must change. She starts to change. Everything falls to shit. And then she has to rise from the ashes and redeem herself so that she can transcend to the next stage of her life. She's actually the main character of the film. The Badger character goes to that point, but then he doesn't. And he retreats back to what he knows, which is violence. And at the end of the film, he's pretty much exactly where he started. So she's the lead. When American Velvet will come out, it's in post now, and it's a sound design. When you watch that film, it's a completely different movie about the same story. And so it would be like sitting down with this Badger character and be like, okay, man, tell me what happened. He's like, well, I hadn't talked to a woman in 12 years, and then I got swept away in this bullshit, and then they wanted me to kill her, and I fucked up, and when you talk to her, the interesting thing about her story, she doesn't see any of his like martial arts stuff. She doesn't see any of that going on. She doesn't know anything about it. And she actually leaves at the end of the movie thinking he's just a delusional psychopath because, he tries to get her to kill her own pimp who she's in love with. She doesn't even realize who he actually is. We know who he is from Badger, but from her perspective, she doesn't know. She doesn't really know. And so at the end of the film, she doesn't know who he is, and she leaves with the money, and doesn't look back. And that's really interesting. It's like, it really is like sitting down in a room with two people who've gone through a bad relationship. And you ask the guy, tell me what happened. Well, she did this and that, and this, done. And then you tell the girl, or you ask the girl in a separate room, and it's completely a different story. My version versus your version of the events are completely different. And so what we did is we shot both of these at the same time by using a lot of coverage, a lot of footage, and we did two reshoots, one for Badger and one for Velvet. The film's called American Velvet, tentatively. And in the editing room, over a long period of time, I parsed them out into two separate stories and two separate films that are the same sequence of events, but my version of the events versus your version of the events, which was really true, and you can see why each person would see it in their own way. And I find that from, an art house filmmaker, I find that really interesting. It's not mainstream, and it's not easily financeable, so we had to really just, pull up the bootstraps and say, hey, let's make this happen, and let's do it. And American Badger really is the film that is going to have the box office sales, or whatever you want to call it. We actually been picked up by a major cable network.
Nice.
Really great. I wish I could say it hasn't been announced yet, but I'm really excited. It's like my favorite cable network of all time, and we got picked up by it. And that's how we're gonna refund part of the money we spent, and the rest is just an exercise in filmmaking for me. My intention here is to create a body of work where I feel so confident by making all these mistakes, by learning all these things, by having these triumphs, these successes, these failures, again, I wanted to create a body of work that I could stand on and feel that I can go into any meeting with anybody at any time. And they can look at my work. They really want to look at it and have a long discussion with me about how I could helm their project on a, a real budget, like a major budget. And because of my action background, I'm probably the right guy for those, big tentpole type of franchise films. And that's really the intention. It's career building. It's a, I didn't want to be a movie star going into this. This isn't, if I wanted to be a movie star, I would have put up nice lights, and I shot all my close-ups with like a fisheye stored in my face. I didn't set out to be like this charismatic, hero. I wanted to just really experiment and really get into this and make some mistakes. We've got a lot of magical, happy moments. We've got a lot of scenes that, like, how did that scene turn out so badly? It was the best written scene in the script. But we've got a lot of those, and we just pulled these things apart in the editing room, and we came out with 2 films that both work. Just making one film that works is hard, but making 2 films that work about the same story, bananas.
Like, how do you keep that frame of mind when you're putting them together? Because at one point it's like, okay, so Badger is flowing, but wait, no, this is Velvet, and Velvet, the beats are different. This one's like, how do you?
It's actually not that hard. You put yourself in the position of the main character, and you're like, would she know this? No, she wouldn't. How would she see this scene? It's the same dialogue, but it's actually not the same dialogue, because when you could be in a room and have a conversation with somebody, and they could go and say, yeah, it went like this, and the other person can be like, oh, we talked about that. And so that's what's in each scene. Almost every scene, there might be some lines that overlap where they're both in agreement, but in general, the dialogue is different, even though the location is the same. So what she's hearing him say is different from what he thinks he says.
Yeah, and I guess especially because they don't know each other. So it's like,
No idea.
it can take ages to pick up on people's inflections and body language. Because, there's times when people go, like, oh, if you're sitting in a certain way, that means blah, blah, blah. That's what, like, experts will tell you. But that's not always the way. Right. Yeah. And especially someone that hasn't spoken to people all this time, they're not going to follow those typical communication norms. So you could definitely see how that can throw up a situation where someone could easily misconstrue your intentions or what you're trying to put out there. I think this would be a fascinating, because you get those cinemas, right? Over here we've got places like the BFI, the Prince Charles, places like that, and they do these movie double headers, right? So I definitely kind of envision this as being one of those situations, like the Badger Hole, American Badger, American Velvet. See them here.
I hope so. I hope so. It's art house filmmaking, right? I mean, it's I mean, you don't go into a project thinking, how can I maximize box office? Because if you do that, really, like, you will just make a bad action B movie, and that's easy to do. And it's easy to make a B movie, like a genre film. If I wanted to do something that simple, God, I would have saved so much money, so much time, so many headaches, so much, just terrifying moments of my life that I've just been like, oh my God, this isn't working. Holy shit. I need to walk away for a day, a week, come back and figure out how I'm going to fix this. That would have been all those nightmares, 2 years in the editing room. That would have been gone. I could have literally just went, hey man, let's make a kick-ass, martial arts film. Because we've got the most talent. We got the deepest talent pool. Where I'm based out of in Vancouver for stunt performers. We've got 560 working stunt performers, and LA. I mean, they don't even shoot anything in LA. We've got a deeper stunt pool, in Canada than anywhere, because they've outsourced all of their movies from LA, from Hollywood. It's the same as every other industry. So like the best technicians in making cell phones are in China.
Yeah.
The best, guys who are performing fights, and I mean, they're in Canada. It's just how it is. I'm sorry, sorry, Americans, but it's just how it is. Work in America.
Hey, you're meant to be Canadians are always meant to be the nice guys.
Well, we
Not
are.
the ones kicking ass.
We are also to be honest, sometimes we also play hockey, and we have a code of conduct in our society. We still do, grow up fist fighting. We're like the Irish. We're very we will throw down. You look at me the wrong way. It's that culture. We're super polite, but don't take it too far. We will knock you out. We will go redneck. We will go full redneck.
The badger is coming out. Oh man,
That's funny.
When you shot, like, because the opening scene, right, it's like this slow kind of action, right, and it's shot in this club and everything like that. Like, did you know from the giddy up that would be the open, or did that just come in the edit room as such?
That came as a result of distributor demands, sales demands.
Right.
That fight scene was supposed to be 10 minutes in the film, and that was another part of the restructuring process, because I wanted to set up the characters and build the characters a little bit more before we had that fight scene. But they're like, no, this has to check that box, because we make sales on this film with a poster, a trailer, and they'll watch the first 10 minutes of the movie, and that's it. Like a lot of buyers in Kazakhstan or whatever, right? Like that's where we get most of our sales internationally from multiple countries. They don't speak English. They'll just want to see the poster, the trailer, and the first 10 minutes of the film, knowing that and then of course they'll look at the team. Of course they'll say, oh, hey, this this director guy, oh, he's got all these Marvel films under his belt that he's choreographed, filmed, performed, whatever, and they will look at that. But if I had it my way as a geeky artist, I would have put that action scene in a different place, and I would develop the characters a bit more, because I think the film, when the way it's marketed and the way it just punches you in the forehead with this fight scene, right? I think I'd have to do the body count on it, but I think I'd like smash and kill 35 people. I don't.
Yeah, good few people. Good few
people. I should count. You think I know?
It's just like, oh shit, someone woke up without their coffee.
Someone, yeah, a whole lot of people. So yeah, that's just one of the sacrifices that you make. You have to fit into this certain genre, somewhat, and that's part of the sales of it. The sales aspect, yeah, you got to open with a bang, and I think that personally, I think that detracts from the film. I would like to get to know the characters a little bit better, get to know their struggle a little bit better before we see that. And because I think smashing in the forehead with a crazy action scene of that length, it's like 3 stages, and it goes, and it's really tight and violent. And then we go into the character development. It feels like the movie stops, but it wouldn't feel like it stops if it didn't start with like repeated punches in the face, body, right?
But I think the voiceover that helps set the tone differently, and I thought the voiceover was very interesting, right? Because usually you kind of feel that this kind of character, it's like, I'm a lone wolf, I'm a leader, I'm an alpha male. Right?
Yeah.
I control my own destiny. I steer my own ship. But I thought, and that's something we get hammered into us throughout life, right?
Mhm.
To be anything in the world, you need to be a leader, not a follower. Followers, they get nothing.
Yeah,
But
nice. Stand with
yeah,
your chest out. Be ready to take on the world at all times. Yeah, this character is the opposite of that. He's
yes, and that
total recluse.
narrative, real interesting, because it's like you see, there's so many people who work better being guided. You know what I mean? And it's like, I mean, there's been a few films where like a character has realized that, and you've kind of seen that in their arc, but I don't think it's ever really overtly been said. You know, so I thought to come out the gate, because we've got this juxtaposition of the violence, but then we've got the character going, you know, I just like to have someone tell me what the fuck to do. It's just
Yeah,
like, oh,
my superpower is not that I'm this killing machine. My superpower is that I'm just really good at taking orders from other people, and that way I don't make any mistakes.
yeah.
So he's resigned. He's like, I've resigned from life. I don't talk to anyone in 12 years, and all I do is just get people to tell me what to do. And because I'm really good at killing people, that's what I do. And he's not a hero, not really. Even at
Yeah.
the end, he doesn't he's not really heroic at the end. He goes back into his reclusive shell and goes back into having people tell him what to do. The last scene of the film, you can hear the beeping and the cell phone ringing of like his boss is calling him, to tell him, what the fuck is going on? Why didn't you follow orders? So he's going back into that moment. And what will he change a little bit? Well, we don't really know. We don't really see it. Right. So if you can connect with that character, you'll like the film. And it's kind of cool. We got really polarizing reviews, which I think is very cool, because we didn't get any like 2-star reviews, like none. Right. We got 4-star and we got 1-star. It's like either you went into the movie and you were expecting to see John Wick and you give the movie a 1-star, or you're going into the film with an open mind and you're like, what is this about? This, I love film noir. And then they're like, wow, this film actually has some layers of complexity to it. And oddly enough, it's actually getting higher ratings from a female audience, which is weird, but not that weird, because females are more, they're more tolerant of things. They're more, maybe not tolerant, but they're more complex creatures, I think. And so instead of watching John Wick, like a lot of feminine, they don't like John Wick that much, because it's like, it's too masculine, it's too much. Where this guy's like, the female characters seem to be connecting to him in a different, more meaningful way than our male audience. So we're getting higher reviews from the female audience, even though it's totally not marketed towards that, because distributors' point of view, they're like, hey, we've got this Hollywood fight choreographer that's been doing this forever, that's done all these big shows and everybody knows who he is. Let's focus on that and let's sell the crap out of that. Smart, they have to. And I need to do that too, to make some of the money back, repay people and myself. But then you've also got a layered character in there. And if you care, and if you want to follow that, there is some complexity to these people. It's not just John Wick. Nobody just killed my puppy at a gas station and I go on a rampage. And it's like, yeah, get the Mustang out, do the donuts, kill as many people. It's not that movie. It's an art house film. It's an art house film, and it's not everyone's cup of tea for sure. But if you can do a little bit of homework on it first and know what you're going into, you'll probably be you won't be as disappointed as a young man going in thinking you're going to watch John Wick 5, because it's not that. Even though we have 120 stunt guys on the movie and huge martial arts set pieces, action pieces, but there is still some layers going on underneath. And when people know that there's actually a companion piece to the film told through the perspective of the other character that's completely different from this version, it should make at least some of the film nerds out there interested and watch both. Like maybe we'll have a badger hole night and you can watch both movies.
I mean, it is compelling. you know, we're gonna get this second look. Right. I think that's really, because I think sometimes when you watch something, right, and you see these characters go through situations, but one character is kind of leading another character through, or telling another we got to do this and change, you got to change this, and hey, that's not good, let's move, bum bum bum. You do wonder what must be going through that person's head, especially when this is the first time they've met this person, so they've got to take this complete leap of faith into trust, and you wonder, why the fuck are they trusting this person?
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to then see what was going through Velvet's head, that is, yeah, that's kind of big.
I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting. And so for me, I got to satisfy both of my sides of my brain, you know, the film nerd, and then I also got to do, you know, I got to create a character with and then design the choreography around the character, and rehearse it for like months, shoot for a very long time, do as many takes as it were necessary to get these shots done. And so I got to really flex both sides of my brain, which is something I really like to do. I like doing. Yeah.
So does Velvet get a different sort of color palette and a different tone of soundtrack and those kind of things?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, the soundtrack is much more in her world. There's strings. It's more emotional. The Badger character is much more charismatic to her. So when we see him, he's much more charming.
Mm.
In Badger, you know, he hadn't talked to a woman in 12 years, so I'm playing very stilted when he's meeting her, right? Like very stilted, because that's how he's feeling. But in Velvet's version of the film, he's much more charismatic and heroic in her eyes, you know. And I like you said, like, why would she follow this guy? Why would she fall in love with this guy? We're not really seeing it, but when you see it from her perspective, you get it. So yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel you need to do Q&As and shit after these films, and like be able to break it all down and tell people the thinking of, you know, what went in making them. You know what I mean? Because it's so compelling to hear these, you know, opposing kind of forces coming together like that. You know, now
experimental filmmaking, and it's different.
Now, like in the opening, well, it's now the opening scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that I always wonder about, because it's like this fight in a club, and you know, it's dark and everything like that. But sometimes you watch scenes like that and it's too dark, right? And you can't, it's hard to see the action. And then other times it's just right, right? So I'm very intrigued in how you do try and get that lighting just right, you know, to be able to let people see what's going on, but also give that ambiance of, you know, the setting and what would actually be happening for your character.
Yeah, there are two things. Aside from color correction, I mean, color correction is a lot of it, but there's two things that are at the root of that. And the director of photography will allow a certain amount of light into the camera, right? Certain settings, and we use anamorphic lenses for certain things. We use prime. My DP has the largest camera company in the country, and the largest set of selection of lenses, I think, you know, maybe not in the world, but he's a total lens geek, right? So he will let it just enough light in the camera, and he'll pick as many things as it is, we, you know, as much of the natural light around the nightclub as you can use, and he'll find ways to like try to find a lens flare as that light spins, and he'll put the camera right where that lens flare is going to catch, you know. And then also there's the choreography and how we shoot it. And you'll notice in Badger, there's almost no insert shots, very, very few. Insert shots are when you like punch in super close, you punch out, you know, you'll see, and some of the action is very good in those types of films. Like for the audience, it's like a Jason Bourne thing where it's like everything is like you can hardly tell what's going on, but you have to do those scenes in a lot of light, right? You have to have, you know, very rarely can you do you know, like that super fast cutty, you know. If you do that with low light, you're going to lose, like you said, you'll lose your audience because they can't see it. So we're using a wider lens, we're stepping back, and most of the fight scenes are shot as one shot. So we're not even cutting. In the editing room, we go in and, you know, we wanted to flash. The reason, you know, I flashed back to him laying in bed thinking about the fight scene so we can make it like a memory, right? So I had to cut up the fight scene in order to put it in the beginning. But the way it was actually shot, the entire sequence, there's like I don't know how many, 75 moves or something like that without a single cut. And we're shooting on a wide lens and we're following and seeing almost the entire body. We're not doing any inserts, any cuts, any of that jumping around things, because we're in a dark environment. And when you prepare that, and then you bring that into the editing room, and then you can adjust it with the color, bring it up, bring it down a little bit. You've given the colorist enough to work with so that you're not going to lose your audience. And so that's how it's done.
Interesting. So, like with a scene like that and some of the other ones, because, you know, like this whole experimental nature of things, like, do you do like, is there a test day and you go, right, let's work out how we film this scene and this scene and this scene, so you know the lighting and the angles? Or do you just run it and then go, all right, let's run it again from this other angle or this other look?
We usually do 3 tests. In a pre-vis, it's just called a pre-visualization of the fight scene. And so we will go in, and again, you have an idea how it's going to piece together after you do the choreography, and you kind of have, you know where the camera's going to be when you choreograph, you kind of place, and then you actually put the camera up, throw on a 35, throw on a 25, you know, whatever you're putting up, and you see if it works, and it never does. And so you go and you splice it together, and you're like, okay, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Let's go back tomorrow and redo it. And so you go back and you have to redo it, and you go back and you cut it all together again, and you're like, okay, that still doesn't work. Can we just punch in on that and make that work? No? Okay. Okay, let's look at this whole thing. Let's tear it all apart and let's put it, okay, what's working, what's not? Okay, what's the best people? Okay. And then the third time you go into the location and you run it all through and you really figure it out, and you're like, okay, we're all signed off on that. So we get there on the day and we got an entire crew standing around, 40, 50 people, all got to be fed. We're ready and we know what we're doing. We're not going to waste time and waste money, especially time, because we only have a few days or 1 or 2 days to shoot that fight sequence. So it's a lot of preparation goes into it. So several weeks of choreography, and a lot of editing, a lot of shooting on location. You shoot in rehearsals as well, in the rehearsal space, but really when you get to the location, if you really want a tight fight sequence, you're going to have to rehearse it on the location.
Yeah.
Without question. So that's how the creative process works right to delivery.
Now that sounds like, it takes a little while, but you've worked a lot on TV as well. So what's the difference of producing that sort of scene on TV? Because I imagine that's quicker. Like you don't have as much time to make corrections and things like that, because it's just, a memorable fight scene would be definitely season 1 of Daredevil, going down the hallway and those tight angles, and it's dark and incredible scene. So
try to find one from television. Try to find another one from television. There isn't any.
Yeah, it is very, it's hard. I think sometimes you're watching these fights, and it's always been my thing with, a lot of this stuff on TV is I don't believe it, right? And I think it's not to say, right? What I'm going to say is not to say that everything they do is bad, but for me,
I'll say it.
like the Netflix Marvel stuff was the closest stuff to, I think, the way you might envision that going down, right? The closest thing to an action movie, because a lot of times you get, I always found like the DC stuff, like the Smallville and things like that, never believed any of those fights. They just were just weird. You're just like, what's going on? Come on, man. Like, no one would do that. And you're not punching like that. And it's just like, infuriating. So it's just like, watching that Netflix. But now, Falcon and Winter Soldier, that just took it up another motherfucking notch.
Yeah.
Jeez. That was incredible. Oh my days. When the Dora Milaje came in and cleaned up, whoo! Oh my.
Yeah. There's like when you go to, and this is, I work on these. This is nobody's fault. This is just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. The CW action is generally bloody awful, even though they've got really good people at the helm. But how can you, I worked on Superman and Lois. I think I can say that. Yeah, I worked on it a couple months ago. It should be up by now. And we, they wanted like they wanted a Zack Snyder scene, and we had one day to rehearse it. And we've got like 5 guys on ratchets flying through the air, and they want this like slow motion, boom, and exploding. It's like Zack Snyder. I've worked, on those, and like that would be Zack would take 3 months to rehearse that. We had one day. How is that going to look good in one day? It looks good enough for TV, right? It looks good enough, but you can't do quality feature film work on a television schedule. You can with acting, but you can't with action.
Yeah.
These streaming TV shows are different. When Netflix makes for streaming, they shoot those like, I think Altered Carbon, the budgets were $34 million an episode. So they're spending $34 million an hour of television. Well, of course, and Apple C, the Jason Momoa thing, the fight scenes are great. And they have, hundreds of millions of dollars to throw behind it in schedules that are feature film level schedules. But when you're talking about CW, you can have the same choreographer, well, generally, but maybe somebody who came up in the CW universe and didn't experience a Zack Snyder film might not know the difference or how to get that kind of quality, or maybe not, maybe they do. But you'll just never be given enough time to experiment, to work, to figure out the details, to get a CW TV show like Smallville to the level of a feature film. You just never ever will, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. It's just not the same time.
Yeah, because I've always heard that it's so fast paced, right? They're doing 20 something episodes, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And so like when you're explaining, what I mean? We'll practice the scene, and we'll do the first day and then the second day, and then you go to the actual place and we'll do it, and you're just like, all right, if it takes this much to do that, how the hell can they, what I mean? And that's it, right? Because you just don't have the time. But I do think that there's an expectation. I don't think when watching like the CW stuff, there's an expectation for that level of fight scene. But when you're watching, Falcon and Winter Soldier, you expected it, because we're told, like, the whole sell was, this is Marvel Studios taking over the TV stuff, and this stuff is feeding into the, so we're like, okay, all right, fine, if that's what you're gonna do, we're cool, but you better show us something motherfucking good. And yeah, they you have to, you mean, like, love it or hate it, the quality of WandaVision and then Falcon Winter Soldier was just like, oh shit, this blows Shield out the water. Shield is that ugly little step kid that you just hide and you don't want anyone to see anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like that.
Good way to put it.
Oh man, yeah, it must be like, for you, like, having your foot in all of these worlds, what is there one that speaks to you the most, or is it just one of those cases of it's like they all feel a different need?
They all fill a different need. Yeah, they all feel a different need. Before I made my first art house film, which was like an urban street busking musical, before I did that, I had just come off of like a string of DC and Marvel feature films, and years, even like I came off like 14 years of essentially creating violence. You know, like, it's like, all I've really done up till this point in my life, I'm 35, and all I've done is create violence since I was like 22. You know, that's all I've done. I just created violence, and most of it's consumed by, you know, teenagers, kids, mainstream audience. And you know, it was really awesome when I was 25 to, you know, be doing that. And when I got, you know, when I did X-Men 2, it was like the biggest scene in the world and the biggest movie in the world. And I was Nightcrawler in the Oval Office, and it was like the biggest thing that ever happened to me. It was so exciting, but I was like, you know, I was like 30. And then as it goes on, you're like 35, 36, I'm like, I can't just do this for another 30 years and retire. I can't. I can't have, I won't be satisfied as a human being when I'm like, there'll be, you know, I'm a fatalist, you know. I had some health issues a long time ago, and I'm a bit of a fatalist. I know I'm going to die. We're all going to die. And you know, I think it's more prevalent in my mind. So I always think about, you know, if I'm about to die, what will I regret? Would I regret making an urban musical, this, you know, art house award-winning film, or hopefully award-winning it turned out to be? Would I regret trying, or would I regret the fact that I did the same thing from when I was 23 till I was 60, just creating violence, right? I couldn't do that. So when I went and I did this really artsy musical, which really confused people, critics would look at my resume and go, what the fuck is he doing? He can't do this. This is not how the industry works. You can't be an art house filmmaker and also be Nightcrawler. Can't do it, son. And I did get attacked by some critics on a personal level for it.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Yeah, it's super weird. I am actually getting the same thing on Badger in some reviews. Yeah. They don't attack after me.
Like, the weird thing about that is, because it's just like, there are so many examples of people that have these, you know, different personas, but they both work. You know, so it's weird to be like, oh, you can only do this. How dare you? How
Everyone
dare
is complex. We're human beings. We're complex things. I mean, are you kidding? Of course, everybody has this need. Everybody does. My friends who stayed in stunts and never did anything else, the ones that really did, are the most jaded, miserable people that I know. Substance problems, broken marriages, they're miserable. My friends that, like, maybe they weren't even talented, but who started playing guitar, learned piano, wrote a book, got into acting. those people have fulfilling lives. Yeah, their resumes are stacked as stunt guys, but outside of that, they've also, you know, they're writing songs and they're painting. They're doing things that are creative, because we're all creative human beings. I don't, you know, unless you've got, you know, unless you're brain damaged, or even then you're a creative human being. I mean, we're all creative. And so to categorize people like Hollywood, like the entertainment business does, it is kind of it's frustrating. It really is. And I know people who are the highest paid stunt coordinators, action directors in the world, that almost have to keep their hobbies silent. They can't post them. They can't put up a, you know, Instagram video of them singing or doing something like that, because all of a sudden that producer is like, no, I just want the best person in the world for if this person is learning how to sing, then they're obviously not qualified to choreograph the fights. It's like, really? I don't think that's true.
But the person saying it has hobbies. Like that's the thing that is always so weird, because the people that say to you, no, all you can do is this. It would be like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, well, you know, I'm gonna go like canoeing, I might go bouldering. I did Sunday night, I think we're doing some karaoke and maybe some pottery. And it's just like, oh, so you can do other things, motherfucker, but I have to be in a box.
But because I work for you, I can't. Yeah. But that's how the industry works. It really is. And it's pathetic. But when you see it from a money manager's point of view, I kind of get it. They're putting together pieces really fast, and they're looking at all the work, and then a video pops up of them playing, you know, or playing cello. And you're like, well, is he a cellist? She a cellist, or is he a stunt coordinator? Well, he can be extremely capable as a stunt coordinator and been playing the cello as a hobby for 20 years and be phenomenal. Right?
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to the dexterity of the thing, right? Because to do that, the coordination, right? The processing of, okay, my finger goes from here to here. All right, I'm gonna then take the song up to here, bring it down, right? So I stop, pause, boom, go, like all of that. And that goes into, okay, planning the stunt. Right, we need to place this here. Okay, too much explosives. Take that down. Don't want to hurt anyone. All right, boom, boom, boom. Like it's the same thing, because you can't be dumb and play the cello. So you would hope that, you know what I mean, this dude that is doing all of this stuff, yeah, that like to playing the cello just shows that their mind is on point. That's
you would think. You would think that's what they, you know, you hope that's what they would do, but it works against you. And I mean, I'm kind of at that place in life where it doesn't really, I mean, it's funny because from the filmmaking side, it's exactly the same thing, right? Forever, stuntmen were not allowed behind the lens. I mean, they would put a hairdresser in, you know, in the director chair before they put a stunt coordinator in the director's chair. And this is still a discrimination that's still ongoing, even after John Wick. And, you know, there's been 3 or 4 really, you know, box office hits have been directed by some colleagues of mine. But even now, we're still discriminated against because, a stuntman can't do anything other than an action film because they're not artistic. They're not. They can't, because they're stunt guys. They must be dumb. Well,
and sometimes your work isn't even credited. Like this one crazy thing I remember hearing just recently. I was speaking to someone and they're telling me that, you know, a lot of times actors will take credit for stunts they didn't do. And it's just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's just like, you're on the poster, you're getting the huge check, what's the need to take away that shine someone else had? Like, it's baffling. But you never really hear about like the stunts, the people that did. The only time you kind of hear about the stunts is when an accident happens.
You don't even hear then. You only hear about it if someone dies, and maybe you hear about it and maybe you don't. I just wrote an article about this for Movie Maker magazine. It's going to come out in their next publication. This is exactly what they asked me to write about. And it's pretty eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people to realize that in a film like, the Road Warrior or something is nominated for like 8 Oscars, right?
Mm.
Well, who's responsible for most of the creativity that goes on in that film? Well, the director. Who's the second most responsible? The stunt coordinator, the stunt team.
Yeah.
And not only are they not recognized, they don't have an Oscar. The establishment has pushed back against that for years, so long. But the injuries and the severe, lifelong catastrophic injuries that happen, not necessarily on that film, but on blockbuster movies. Mm-hmm. Nobody pays attention to it. You pay attention to the concussion issues with NFL athletes, with hockey players. We do that stuff without a helmet, bro. Right? Yeah. Man, I know. We actually are the only business in the world with a 100% injury rate.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And yet actors will still go on the thing and say, yeah, I do all my own stunts. It's like we let them do some of their little things. Sorry, man, you're not gonna get hit by a car, bro. You're not. You know why? Because if you don't get up, the movie shuts down.
Yeah.
But if the stuntman gets killed, they shut down only for one day and they start back up the next morning.
Just one day.
One day. Oof. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. There's a schedule and there's money, but someone just got killed. Like, they've got friends who have to then go out there and do similar shit and have in their mind, am I next? Like, fuck.
There will be a stunt sequence the day after your friend was killed and you're on set the next day doing dangerous things again. And this is not talked about, right? How many people would ever know that has 100% injury rate?
No one.
No one heard of such.
It never gets mentioned.
Why is it that we work in the shadows, right? Why is that? Why will you never see Keanu Reeves stunt double on stage at the Oscars? Why is that? Why?
I'd say it's ego. People don't want this. They like it. You see, there's people that don't want to share the spotlight, right? And if someone, you watch this big crazy film with all of these explosions and these things happening, and people are like, oh my days, that person did all of that. That's incredible. But then if you be like, well, I mean, they did that scene when they talked to the person, but the fights and all of that was Timmy Smith. And you're like, wait, but the fights were the majority of the film. So why the fuck is that motherfucker getting an Oscar when it was Timmy that did most of the fucking film, right? And if you knew that, you wouldn't respect that Oscar as much.
This is the root of it, and it's actually not the ego of the actor generally. It's really not. The actors, they get it. They come to set, they stand back and go, holy shit, is he alive? And this guy gets up, dusts himself off, goes, gets the ice pack. And so we have a lot of respect for most actors.
That's good.
But
that's good to hear.
Systemically, it didn't start like that. Systemically, it started in the Westerns. And John Wayne couldn't ride a horse. So they would get some, whatever local cowboy to do some cool stuff and, shoot him from the back and from the side and shoot him up. So, because John Wayne couldn't ride.
I did not know that.
If people knew that John Wayne wasn't doing that cool stuff, the public, the mainstream public, had no idea about stuntmen back then. They really thought he could do all that trick riding and get on the horse while he's, bareback, and he's, shooting a gun. He can't do that. But the mystery, the mystique of John Wayne, he was also shorter than a lot of people realize. They would always have the woman next to him crouching if they were in a two shot. They would put him, higher. They did all these things because they understood that you had to create a fantasy. And that has somehow gotten into the DNA of the movie industry, and it is still there today. The studios look at this as that old way, that DNA is still here. They don't want, and if they thought about it for a second, they probably would, but instinctively they don't want stunt people recognized, because it breaks that wall of like, why is a movie star this intoxicating thing? Well, you know what it is? It's because when you watch a movie and it affects you emotionally, either it's thrilling, it's adrenaline, or it's like deeply emotional, when you see the actor's face, you connect everything about that to that actor.
Yes.
All that actor did was show up and talk and say the lines in a convincing way. But everything else that went on around them, the lighting, the makeup, the hair, the stunts, everything goes into creating a sensation, a feeling, whatever that is. Maybe sorrow, maybe joy, maybe elation, maybe adrenaline. And then you look at the movie star's face and you think that person is the one that's responsible for it. And they're not. They're not. That's the magic of star power. That's the magic of Hollywood. And by having that adrenaline, that action star, Jackie Chan has many stunt doubles, right? Greatest action star in the world. He would stage accidents after the movie. He would do a blooper reel, and fake accidents.
No.
Yeah, and this is my hero, right? Like, I'm not dissing Jackie Chan. He was the man. He was my inspiration, and my teammates were on his team. I'm like deeply indebted to Jackie Chan, but I know because my were there. Like, one of his stunt doubles is a white guy from Australia.
How does that work?
He did 4 movies as Jackie Chan's stunt double, and they put a prosthetic Jackie Chan head on him, and he would do all of Jackie's stunts. He would do all of this, all this, even his fighting, and it's creating that sensation, and Jackie was a genius in movement and choreography. I'm not anything from that, but it was so important for them to, give that audience what they want.
Yeah.
Show that blooper where he gets hit in the face, and it actually, some of them were real, of course, but if they didn't have enough, or they didn't, they wanted to, they would create a blooper after they were shooting. They would create bloopers where he'd like be limping around with a broken leg, and he didn't actually have it. So that's the same thing that's going on in Hollywood. They know that it sells box office. People go to movies to escape. They want the fantasy of it. They allow visual effects, Oscars, hair, makeup, camera, cinematography. And I think it's because those are all kind of like sort of deep in the background. Nobody really knows what a cinematographer really does, right? You can't really relate to it unless you're a photographer.
No, but it kind of sounds different a lot of times when you hear about it. Different people will say different things. So you're like, wait, I thought you, okay. So yeah, it's one of those titles that you see, but it's like, oh, okay, they got a cinematographer. Oh, it must be a good.
Yeah. But the primal thing of like seeing a guy hit with a car moving at relatively high speed, smashing the window, flying over the hood, over the roof, landing on concrete, that's a human being. That's a person, and that's a primal thing that if You saw behind the scenes footage of that stunt performer doing that, and they broadcast that, and they showed the behind the scenes of that at the Oscars, let's say, then this is a whole area that they don't really want to go into. They don't know what's going to happen to the actor star if they saw the behind the scenes, and imagine if they saw, behind the scenes of stunt performers being injured. Imagine the connection that you would have to that performer, and then how differently you would look at the movie star who made the action movie. When you look at that movie star's face, you're gonna have doubts because you saw behind the scenes footage, not on YouTube or not somewhere that you don't really know what it is, but at the Oscar award ceremony. What if you saw that?
Well,
right?
I think the thing is though, right? What they're not really getting is people, when they see a new film's coming out, right? A lot of times, it's like music. I remember when an album dropped, like when Jay-Z, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, any of they drop a new album, right? I'm always on the credit notes going like, oh shit, who produced? Oh, Jay Tronada did a track. All right, you know what I mean? That's cool. Who else? Young Guru did something. Knife One. Ah, nice. There, I'm getting this shit. This is gonna be dope, right? So it's like, if people knew the stunt people, it would be the same thing, because people look at films for the directors. They're like, oh, well, I always see a Sam Mendes film. I mean, if Sam's behind the camera, I'm gonna go see it. Oh, if Gina Rodriguez is starring in a film, I'm gonna go see that, right? So it's like, if I see, Kirk Caouette, he's doing the stunts and shit. Oh shit, yeah, Kirk always does great stuff. I'm gonna go see, it would just be that, right? It's just like, how do you not understand? Because that's the thing with everything else. People follow people they like, right? They follow directors, actors, musicians. If John Williams does a score, people are like, oh, right, John Williams, he never disappoints. Ah, man, I'm gonna get on that, right?
I know.
So it's just like, if you knew the stunt people, it would be why would it be different? It wouldn't. And you're just looking at the actors going, like, yes, you might be like, I thought they did their own stunts. But on the flip, you'll be like, they convinced me, man. So, hey, they're still a great actor, because they still convinced the fuck out of me to believe that they just got run over. So I'm still on it. I'm still not going, ugh, I can't watch another Tom Cruise film because I thought he really jumped across that building to the next one. No.
He actually does some of those. You just validated my article for Movie Maker magazine. That is exactly what I said. I exactly the way you expressed it. You just nailed it on, like, right on the nose, man. I said, this old DNA, nobody believes it. No, it's over. If like, we could have more protections for our stunt people if people knew they existed.
Yeah.
When you are in cinema in China, the fight choreographer has almost, sometimes more, star power than the director, because they celebrate their fight choreographers there, and they are household names. And guys like Sammo Hung, who are, they are absolute mega stars, and we hide our fight choreographers and pretend they don't exist. They celebrate theirs. Right.
It does seem to make sense with, like, the culture and the type of films that are, like, made a lot of the time. So yeah, I would believe that. But it's just like, it's weird, right? Because Hollywood are definitely taking and they're taking advice from China, right? It's just like, okay, we better change the gender of that character now. We better not put that flag in this film, right? So
Yeah.
you'd think if you're gonna do all of that, why not as well then go, well, all right, if they're treating their stunt peoples like this, then maybe we can do the same.
It
So,
seems obvious, right? Like you said, when you're looking at the back of an album, if you're really into it, you're gonna know who those names are, right? And you're kind of gonna geek out to it. I think it would improve the box office. I think it would it not only, but it would also humanize the stunt department. It would humanize these people. And if one of them died and they started shooting the next day, at least you'd hear about it. My
well, yeah,
my
they're
friend,
not mentioned in the Oscars thing of the memorable people that were killed this year.
no, they don't mention they know
This
the
is
act.
insane.
They don't know the stunt performers that were killed or had her arm ripped off. My best friend, this is something that really deeply affected me. Um, my at that time, that moment in time, he was my best friend in the world, and he was on the set of Smallville, and he was up on a bridge doing a stunt, and his safety wire got clipped by a piece of metal and it snapped. He was 33 feet above a concrete parking lot, and he spiraled in 33 feet, 3 stories into concrete. And he landed on the right side. He broke his skull in 2 places, broke his jawbone, broke every bone on the right side of his body, lacerated his liver, pelvis, hip, knee, ankle, half the bones in his feet. Nobody heard about it. Nobody
Oh, I
heard.
did not know that.
Yeah. And this is not an isolated incident. I have many of my friends who are permanently disabled. Nobody knows anything about that. My friend Chris lived, which was amazing. He actually had a slight DNA defect in his blood, and his blood clotted faster than the normal person. And they got him to the hospital. I was there right away, and they were pumping blood transfusions into him, and he was swelling like the marshmallow man because he was bleeding out. Right, he had so many broken capillaries bleeding out, and the family started coming in, and we're just like, just the most, I don't feel like crying right now, but it's the most horrible thing. And the doctor said, we're probably not going to save him. And then his blood pressure started to take up, and they're like, what's going on? His blood pressure just started rising. And we're like, oh my God, could he possibly live? He was like swollen out to here with all this blood inside of him. And he survived. He does have, he has limitations in life, of course. He's never been able to work again, but he lived. And nobody knows about any of this. Nobody knows about the things that we've all been through. I've had, and I don't sit here and talk about all the broken bones and all the crazy, because we've all gone through it. If you've been a stunt performer for very long, you've gone through it. And we've got suicide, substance abuse problems. We've got post-concussion syndrome everywhere. And we have a culture in stunts where you do not want to say that you have a concussion, because A, you might not get hired for a while, and B, you don't want to seem weak because you are judged by your toughness. It's like, it's from the cowboy mentality. It's from the rodeo star mentality. It's where it came from. How tough are you? Yeah, get back on that horse and then hit the bar, and drink a whole bottle of whiskey. And that's, and hats off to those guys, are tough dudes. But in a modern world, and in $200 million action films, this is not necessary anymore. We don't need this kind of behavior, because it ruins lives. It ruins families. It really does. Relationships, marriages, households. It destroys. Post-concussion syndrome is a horrible thing. Your personality changes. Your outlook on life changes. You clouds in your brain. You become violent. There are so many post-concussion problems in football, but they all get paid off. They're all like huge insurance policies, whatever. Most of the time, like where I'm working right now, there is no long-term disability. So I'm performing on this film I'm working on as well. And if I did have a catastrophic accident, there is no safety net for me here. And that's another thing that people don't realize. Stunt performers
assume that there was with doing these crazy things. You'd think, well,
with no helmet,
compensated.
With no helmet, we're getting like hit by cars, flipping over, slamming on a concrete. No helmet.
And that happened to me one time, and I know that hurts like a motherfucker. So you know what I mean? Oh, yeah.
Try to go to bed the night before and get a good night's sleep, knowing that's what you're going to do at 9 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, man.
That's the life of a stunt performer.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend the other day, and we was talking about like there's been some like sexual allegations against the Australian swimming team, right? And one of their swimmers, she pulled out of the trials. She like, because I've complained about this behavior and nothing's been done. And what baffled me was the fact that what happened in gymnastics, the craziness, the foulness that came out, and all the other disciplines didn't go, we better audit ourselves to make sure nothing happens here.
It's
like
crazy.
Yeah, no one was like, oh, if that happens there, it could happen here, right? And that blows my mind that there's this nasty mentality that no one's trying to look after people. And in regards to you guys, I kind of feel, because like we've seen all these deaths in pro wrestling, WWE, that's pro wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We see all those deaths, Chris Benoit, just all of those ones. We've
suicides.
We've seen it in NFL. Like, we've seen the consequences of concussion. So to go to look at people who do the same fucking thing, and go, they'll be all right. It's just like, what? Like,
well, the thing is, nobody is looking. That's the thing. Nobody is looking. At least the gymnastics teams in the Olympics, people are looking at them. We work in the shadows. We work behind a closed curtain that nobody knows about. I'm working on location. I can't even tell you the movie I'm on. It's a 100 million plus franchise film. I can't even tell you what movie I'm on. You'll see my name in the credits next year, whenever it's released. But I can't even talk about what's happening in my department. This is all going on behind this velvet curtain of the stunt department. And even the crew, they don't really know. The producers don't really know what's going on, because we have always worked like that. You keep your mouth shut, you're tough. Hopefully you've got some talent that we can bring, that you can offer us, and you're loyal, and keep your mouth shut, and keep your mouth shut, and keep your mouth shut. And it's like, how are we in 2021 with the Me Too movement, and all lives matter, stop Asian hate, everything, and we're still in this, all these allegations, all these crazy things that happen in the Olympics, and we as stunt performers are doing these extremely public things on the big screen. We're this massive force inside of the film industry. We are what makes blockbusters. We make money for Hollywood more than any other department. I'm sorry, but nobody fills a theater like an action film. You can't. You're not going to see Marvel films without any action in them. But yet we are still ghosts.
Yeah.
Even the action directors that will direct 1/3 of a movie will give all of that credit over to the main unit directors, so that they can sit there on the red carpet and collect their award. And we say nothing about it. Meanwhile, we've got substance abuse problems. We got concussion problems. We got deaths. We got dismemberment. it's the hardest freaking job in the world, man. Not that many people do it for very long because it kicks the crap out of you. I was down up and out for a while. I'm bounced back. I'm down out again. I bounced back. I had head injuries. I had a crazy bone marrow autoimmune cancer disease thing that I got from like 1.5 million people get it. So it came from probably from this prosthetic suit that I got shoved in that was from China that I had to wear out in a gravel pit on this stupid can't even remember. It was a Burt Reynolds, Jason Statham film. Nobody even saw it. Some Kings, I can't remember what it's called. But I had to wear the suit, and not just me, a few of my friends, and we had to like. It took 3 hours or two hours to get into the suit. 3 people helping you to get into these suits, and then we were in a heat wave. We went on a gravel pit, and for 2 weeks we did fight scenes in these suits. Day 1, my friend collapsed. Day 1 from heat stroke. He's a 6-time karate world champion. He collapsed day 1. They cut him out of the suit, and the ambulance said if they didn't get him out 15 minutes later, they would have got him out 15 minutes later, he would have died of heat stroke. And we continued on, and I'm stubborn as a freaking mule. You probably figured by now. I'm stubborn. I won't quit. I don't know when to quit. I won't quit. And we just powered through, and one by one guys dropped off, and they would bring a new guy in. You know, they were dropping like flies. I stuck it out. I was one of the last 3, and I was up in this tree. I was 15 feet up in a tree, and I'm supposed to be this zombie. Like I'm in this 30-pound prosthetic, and again, like it was so tight, and it's made in China, full of chemicals, just reeked of chemicals, and I'm top to bottom. I'm zipped in, like glued in. I'm breathing fumes, and this is like 2 weeks in. I don't know how I haven't had heat stroke yet. And I'm hanging out of this tree, and I'm doing the stunt where I've got to like push off this tree and land on this pad. Not a big gag. But they don't have the pad underneath me yet. They put me up in the tree, and they put a little webbing around the tree and gave me a little tiny wedge, just a little wooden wedge to stand on. The ratchet strap wasn't done up tight enough, and the wedge popped out. Now I've got all of my force, all of my strength, bear hugging this tree, and I'm trying to yell at my buddies to bring the mat in, and nobody knows that I'm in deep trouble. I'm going to fall 15 feet flat on my back. It's going to hurt. It's really, really seriously. And I'm holding on. I'm like pushing through the pain. And okay, we're getting ready to roll. Okay, we're going to roll. Okay, hold the roll. I'm like, and you're at that point where you're like, can you hang on for another 30 seconds? Can you push through the pain that you don't can and hold on? It's like a rock climber hanging on for his life. Can you push through that pain while you're wearing a 30-pound suit that's full of chemicals? You're just breathing, huffing in these chemicals. Finally, my friends realized I was in trouble, and they rush over. They start running with the pad, and I pushed off the tree. And as they landed with the pad, I caught the corner of the pad and then hit the ground, but it broke my fall. And I couldn't cool down. It was 27 degrees. I couldn't cool down. And finally they cut me out of the suit. Heat stroke, took me to the hospital. Quit the show. Of course. They were running suits by that point. And there's only 3 or 4 days left. I think 3 days left. And at that point, many of us had really crazy rashes that were breaking out. And 20 years later, we still have them.
What?
We don't know what they are. But we still have them. They come up when it's hot out, and then the rash will reappear. I've got them all over. And about 2 weeks after that, I started to lose weight. I started to get very tired. I started getting very anemic and kept working. Refused to think there's anything wrong, but I lost my fire to go back to work. I didn't want to go back to work. And finally, after 6 months, I collapsed, took to the hospital, and they said, "You've got leukemia."
Jesus
Like,
Christ.
what? And then they brought me back in and they said, okay, it might be way worse than that. You might have this other really, really, really rare thing, but we don't think you have it because only 1.5 million people your age get this. So if you have it, this is extremely rare. And there's no treatment for it. And I'm like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, but you probably don't have it. They did the bone marrow biopsy, they tested it, came back positive. I was the youngest person in the country to have it. And yeah, they give me like 5 years.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Like, can the China people be sued?
Nobody can be sued. Nobody can be sued. I can't even begin to prove that. There's only one connection, and it's through this fire retardant chemical. When they do studies on rodents in labs, they trigger this autoimmune cancer that I have. They trigger it with a fire retardant chemical, and this fire retardant chemical is probably banned in North America, but the suits came from they're saving money.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it was probably in there. But even then, how could I, I signed my rights away when I take a stunt contract. I willingly, it's a waiver, right? It's like, I willingly release my health, well-being, and my life to this production. And in that case, it was a really serious thing in my life. And I'm stubborn, so I took time off, and I got a great health coach, and there was no chemotherapy for it, which was great. It turned out to be great. And I was able to whenever it was triggered, if it was triggered when I was on that tree, when I got heat stroke, or one of those days, one of those weeks, if it was triggered that time, I was actually able to, like, the 6 months or however long before I really got sick, I was actually able to reverse it. And I still have it.
Yeah.
But 13 years later, I'm healthy because I was able to reverse it all the way back to its very, very initial stage. So I'm like stage 1. So, symptoms. But I was stage 3 when they found it.
Good. Damn.
Yeah. And I'm going to probably, if I don't die from something, I'm probably going to die from that eventually. And no, does anyone know these kind of stories? Well, fuck no, of course they don't. Have I ever shared this on a podcast? I have not. Have you ever shared this in media print? No, I haven't. I feel compelled to say it though, because again, we work in the shadows. Nobody knows what we do. And if you could bring, a little bit of the spotlight, I don't want the spotlight. I'm old. I don't care anymore. But to the young guys that are doing crazy stuff, put them on stage, find out hear about them, hear their stories, hear their lives. A celebrity can sneeze. Oh my God, oh, look who's they're dating now. It's like, yeah, but in Resident Evil, that stunt girl got her arm ripped off. Yeah, but I care more about the actress. But yeah, but the stunt double got her arm ripped off. If you actually had that stunt double on stage at Oscars accepting an award for lifetime achievement with a missing arm, people would go, what? This is real? Yeah, it's real. Funny. One last funny story I'll tell you. I know I've been talking a lot right now.
Oh, it's great, man.
One more funny story. The previous stunt double on Smallville, it's one of my teammates. I'm actually working with him right now. And he did this really gnarly stunt. Season 1, I think it was the pilot. And he's standing on a bridge, and it was him and I that figured out how to do this without being killed. But he's standing on a bridge, and a Porsche hits him, and he smashes off the Porsche. It breaks through the guardrail, goes over, it was like 35 feet or something into the water. And he gets hit with the car, and he spins with the car. It's a really great gag. And it had its, it had its very, it was serious in a sense that if he got knocked out, the water was really muddy. We had safety divers, but they might not have found him, right? That was the thing. It's like, if he gets knocked out and goes to the bottom and drifts down the river, they got a couple minutes to find him. So we didn't know if he was going to get knocked out or not. We hoped he wouldn't. We took a calculated risk, but it was a gnarly gag, and you can watch it. It's awesome. Years later, I got married, and I was working with my friend, and I showed my wife. I said, "Hey, here's a shot of it on my teammate I'm working with," and I show her this gnarly gag, and she's like, "Oh my God, did they wreck a Porsche?" I'm like, honey, Steve, you know Steve. And she's like, but he's really doing that? Yeah, that's Steve. We had dinner with him last night. And you're thinking about the Porsche. That sums up the mainstream movie-going audience. That sums it up to a T. They're going to be like, damn, did they wreck a Porsche, man? Wow, a lot of money. That guy really died.
Oh man, like this week, I think it was this week or it was last week, there was this whole litigation about the concussion settlements in NFL. And it was this whole race norming craziness that they had, where it's like they created this base level, so going in, and black players had a lower level, so it meant that when they came in with the same, if they at the end of a season had the same concussion as a white player, they're not getting as much money because they're saying, oh, well, they started lower. And it is like something that makes no sense whatsoever. And it
how did they judge that? What's
I have no clue. I have no clue how they came to that theory in the fucking first place, which is baffling.
That's
and it's just, hit the courts, and they were just like, now they've said they're going to remove it, and they're backdating all the settlements and everything like that. And I'm wondering, like, with that high level thing in the news, right? You've then got the Oscars and the Grammys, like like talking about changing the category names of awards and things like that. Do you think this might be the opportune time to get people to address these two subjects when it comes to your work?
I don't think there will be a time. Like the article I wrote for Movie Maker magazine, people will read it, and then they'll turn the page and see a picture of J-Lo and forget. And because we're not public figures, even though we're highly public on the screen, millions of people watch it. More people will watch an X-Men than will watch a football game. But it'll never be about. It'll never be talked about in public. It'll be kept quiet. It'll be kept behind closed doors. I'm the only one that's ever talked about this on a podcast that I know of. In fact, I know pretty much everyone, and this has never been discussed. The article that I wrote has never. I've seen articles that my colleagues have written, close friends have written, trying to get a category at the Oscars. But I've never seen a published piece about stunt people and what really, a tidbit of what really goes on behind the scenes. I think this Movie Maker magazine article will be the first. And will anything change? No, I don't think so. If it does, it'll happen slowly. Here's why I say that. This concussion thing was major news years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Became major news. Mm-hmm. They set up concussion protocols in place. So they have these protocols. If someone takes a really bad blow to the head, they come off the field. They have to ask them, do you know your name? Do you know where you are? Do you know what date it is? there's these lists of questions that we automatically know every day. If you take a concussion, you take a blow to the head, you don't know.
Yeah.
We have been trying to get that standardized and mandated into the film sets for 4 years. We still don't have it.
Jesus Christ.
We have first aid attendants standing by 24/7 for the cast and crew, and they are still not trained in concussion protocols. And so many times we will have concussions happen in front of our eyes, and it's not taken care of. It's not addressed. It's not even acknowledged, because our first aid attendants are only now just getting the training, just getting started. And will it be standardized? Will it be mandated? That's anybody's guess. I don't know. I have no idea. So even after that many years of this being fully like, we have concussions all the time, and we're getting like thrown across the room, smashed into a wall with no helmet on. You're getting, you're doing so many like brutal hits all the time, and you've got on no helmets. And I sometimes, when I'm wearing a wig, I'll put an elbow pad where I think my head's going to take the most of the hit on the wall. I'll put a little elbow pad under there if I can. If I don't wear a wig, I just tuck my chin and hope for the best. It's the only sport, it's the only business, only job in the world like that. Yeah. And we still can't get that put through. Even in Canada, we still can't get that put through. I'm working on location on a major tentpole film, and we don't have safeties put in place. It's just incredible in this day and age. This is the dark ages. We're going back to like John Wayne days here, where you pay a guy $10 and a bottle of whiskey to fall off the horse, and he limps home, and they pat him on the back and say, "Wow, good job, you're brave, you're a cowboy, you're a real cowboy." This is still kind of what's going on in our business. It's changing, but at the rate everything else is changing, it's nothing yet. And the major powers that be, the major studios, do they want this to come out in the press? Well, of course not. They don't even want to acknowledge that we exist. But you put a stunt performer and give him an Oscar and give him a platform to speak in front of 12 million people, 112 million people. What might they say? We don't know. We don't know. I keep my mouth shut personally. I wouldn't say anything about it if I was on mainstream TV. I wouldn't. I'd be too afraid.
Well, yeah. I mean, you want to work, right?
Want to work. Want a job.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy. It's crazy. And yeah, you're right. No one knows. No one knows any of this.
No, nobody knows what we do. We work in the shadows. We are featured on the screen, and we work from complete darkness. Nobody knows who we are, what we do. Nobody even knows that a third of an action film might be directed by a second unit action director. For all the credit to the main unit director. People don't even know that. Even at the highest levels, they don't know that. So of course, the pool boy from Saving Housewives, who I stunt double, is on, whatever late night talk show telling everyone he does all his own stunts. And I'm sitting home laughing. My friend's texting me. It's like, "Oh yeah, what the hell is his name? Idiot says he does all his own stunts." I'm like, "Oh yeah. I don't care." Like, it's just show business. He's got to say that to increase his brand, whatever. I don't care. My brand is with my colleagues. All I care about is what my colleagues think of me. I don't care what, late night Seth Rogen thinks of me. It doesn't matter. Matters to the actor, but not to me. We don't really care. So.
Yeah, crazy. Maybe the stunt community needs to set up their own kind of Oscars thing.
Well, we kind of do, and that's we do, but nobody watches. It's not a thing. It's just it's like patting each other on the back. It means nothing, and it doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean anything.
And well, I think we need to turn that around. Definitely need to turn that around. You know what I mean?
It's in the DNA, man. It's 100 years old. It's as old as filmmaking. How do you turn that around? I don't know. It'll change bit by bit. Just the fact that we have concussion protocols inching their way into our business, just that alone is a big change.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting you know a stunt category at the Oscars, you know, we're still just trying to get concussion safety put into our sets. We're a long way from getting an Oscar, you know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But you know, hopefully, you know, people read the article when that drops. You know, because I think, yeah, if the right people read it and take notice, who knows? Who knows?
I don't think anything will come of it. I don't. I know it won't. I know it won't.
Mm. Oh man. But hey, you know what I mean? Like the more that Badger does, possibly, you know, you can be there talking and, you know.
Yeah, here we are, you know. Yeah, think about that.
Get
Here we
out.
are, you know. Yeah, here we are. I'm an indie filmmaking art, you know, nerdball, and yet I've got 27 years of this world that I've been living in that I can talk about, and not many filmmakers are gonna be able to do that, and the ones that do, nobody's mentioned it. Like, you know, nobody's talking about this. They're too busy trying to get their next film to direct. And yeah, you know, so maybe I can be a voice and talk to them as well. My friends that are directing feature films now that are stunt performers. There's only 4 of them. we could make this a point of conversation and interviews and things like that. That would certainly start changing things.
Yeah.
That's what it would take. It would take, like, I'm not a celebrity director, you know, I'm in the art house, but my friends that are doing, you know, bigger films, yeah, I can talk to them and see if we can bring some of this into the spotlight. But, you know, it might not be good for their director career either. You know, we've got big forces at play here. I don't know. I mean, we don't have a you know, a race card, a sex card, a discrimination card. We don't have anything that is in the social zeitgeist behind us. We don't have anything that would be like, hey, yeah, okay, we're cleaning up the casting couch. We're cleaning up racial discrimination. Stunt guys, no, no, never mind. You know, they're cleaning up all these, you know, the Olympics, but they're not talking about us.
There's not a kind of a unifying banner to get behind other than just health and well-being in the workplace, which is something that you'd think is universal, but oh no, it's not, right? So it's hard to kind of push it on that front when people go, yeah, but that's just, every workplace is, you know, looks at that, but it's an assumption. I'd imagine that, you know, these things are there, but they're not. So it's hard to now, you know, go, you need to do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I mean, the more we talk about it, who knows?
Who knows? I've shared a lot more on this moment than I have with the public in any other forum in my life. So maybe this will continue.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely, you know what I mean, push it out there and yeah, make sure people pay attention as well as seeing the damn film. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah,
come up for Velvet.
yeah. Coming full circle back to the reason for the podcast and the publicity was the film's coming out June 15th on pay-per-view platforms, and it's going to be on a big cable network in September in the US. And hopefully, it finds a bit of a following. Hopefully a bit of the film nerds like myself kind of get off on it a little bit, thinking about, hey, this is extremely creative, and it, even if it works a little bit, it's kind of a miracle, So hopefully, hopefully it gets some attention, and the more attention it gets, I think the better it is for every stunt performer in the world.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And I'm sure it will. I'm sure, yeah, definitely sure it will. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. So definitely when Velvet comes, you need to come back and we can talk about it a bit more. But hey, if you ever want to just talk about like the stunt situation and just, stunts in general, you are definitely more than welcome, man. This has been a really just a fascinating friggin' insight, right? There's stuff that I had no clue about. You know what I mean? So yeah, I appreciate you just being crazy open and sharing all of that. It's been interesting as hell. And I definitely, man, it bugs me a bit because I just want to be able to go, hey, if you do this, that could help. But I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything that could help the situation.
Yeah.
But if I do, I will let you know, man. I will let you.
If we get like a bunch of stunt guys on Joe Rogan, people might actually go, I never thought of that.
Well, I think he spoke. He might not. I was going to say I think he spoke to Chad, but I don't know if he has actually.
I don't think he has. I hope he does. That'd be awesome.
Because I know he talks about him all the time. No, he hasn't had him on, but he's mentioned him because I think he met him at
the training
tactical place, the shooting place, and
8711. And Keanu Reeves trains there before John Wick even was an idea. He trained with all those guys. Chad was a stunt double from like way back.
Yeah, on the Matrix, right? I think it was. So yes, I think he's spoken about him a good few times, and I think he might have said that he wants to get him on, but they're trying to find the right time. But I mean, if Chad was to talk about this on there, that would be fucking huge.
That would be huge.
That would be a start of something if something was going to start.
It would be. That's the right crowd. That's the right place to get people interested. Hopefully Chad, if he's on there, he doesn't clam up and just talk about the movie.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I hope, because it's just crazy. It's crazy to find out that just the support isn't there. Like after everything we know, after everything we've seen with the NFL, with pro wrestling, I mean, like MMA, like the UFC have just set up a whole concussion program to look at it and the effects on it on fighters. So it's just like with all of this happening and there's no support, it's just.
And we take way harder hits than fighters.
Yeah.
A man only hit another man so hard. A car can hit you a lot harder.
A car hurts. It's been three times. I feel it 3 times and it hurt every time.
It's not a natural thing of humanity. We did not evolve. We evolved fighting, but we did not evolve getting slammed into brick walls on cables at high speeds. We did not get evolved for that. So, yeah.
Oh my days. Oh my days, man. But yeah.
Cool. Well,
But
yeah, this has been super fun. Thanks for yeah, this has been great. Yeah, you're really easy to talk to. I appreciate this, man. This is very cool.
oh, hey, it's my pleasure, man. I just appreciate, you know what I mean, just the time. Just the time and the willingness to just talk about anything. Because you know what I mean? I realize it's maybe not the most conventional in questioning and all of that, but you know, that'd be a little bit boring. So you know, I like to just go in many different directions and tangents, and I'm glad you were just on for the ride. But once you finish filming, you know what the secret project, which, goddamn, I am. I mean, whew, there's possibilities, but I'm not even gonna guess. But once you finish, hey, let come and we'll talk about that one too.
Sounds good. Sounds good, man. Yeah, we'll definitely be back for sure, man. For sure.
Outstanding. All right, man. I really appreciate it. And let's yeah, one last time so people know, American Badger is out Tuesday, the 15th of June on all your favorite VODs. All
Yes.
right. Like hit the episode information and yeah, all the details will be there. And make sure you follow everything Kirk does. All right, Kirk.
All
Hey,
right.
enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thank you
You too,
very much.
brother. Yeah. Thanks
All
so
right.
much. All
All
right.
right.
Peace.